Let's go back to a very important one today, the swearing-in ceremony, Parliament electing the President. It is within our hands to forge a more representative, equal and fair United Nations that is empowered and equipped to lead the struggle to end poverty, unemployment and inequality in the world. Those were the words of Cyril Ramaphosa during his first visit to the United Nations as president last September. That was an occasion when South Africa gifted a bronze statue of Nelson Mandela to the UN with a message that his example should serve as a new dawn for the global organization.
Welcome to New York, Mr. President. Good to see you, sir.
See you. Thank you.
His first visit here was threefold: to convene the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit, address the UN General Assembly and engage UN interlocutors, and finally to allay the concerns of international business and the investor community about the country's socio-political and economic trajectory, including this conversation with former United States President Bill Clinton.
Why should I invest in South Africa right now? What do you say? Last word.
Well, I would say that what we're seeking to do on the land question is to manage risk, to minimize the risk, but at the same time, we're doing a whole lot of other things. We're working on policy issues to ensure that there's policy certainty and consistency. And this we've arrived at after talking to the business sector, to the unions, and we all agree that if we address this, we will begin to see the investment community looking at South Africa in a different way.
His maiden trip to New York as president came after South Africa was elected to a 2-year non-permanent term on the UN Security Council, and after the General Assembly agreed to hold the once-off Nelson Mandela Peace Summit, at which South Africa gifted a life-sized bronze statue of the former president to this organization. A statue that now stands with pride of place at the visitors' entrance to the UN.
It is our deepest hope that this summit, in the name of one of our greatest exemplars of humanity, Nelson Mandela, serves as a new dawn for the United Nations. We hope the summit will give expression to the Secretary General's call for a surge in diplomacy.
Se levanta la sesión.
And with Pretoria's new role in the most powerful decision-making body of the UN, the new president and his team had their work cut out for them, and a great deal of expectation to boot.
When I go back to the issues that I'm very involved in, mass atrocities in the world and the need to stop them from happening and the need for the international community to uphold its responsibility to protect people, these are ideas which Cyril Ramaphosa was literally involved in creating in 2001. He helped coin the phrase responsibility to protect. He was on the intergovernmental panel which made sure that this was adopted by the UN. I think that's a very important thing. I think that's a medal which he should wear on his chest. And so I'm certainly hoping that he will be much more of a leader, both in South Africa and on the global stage, who's able to push these kinds of agendas around not just the defense of sovereignty for sovereignty's sake, but sovereignty as responsibility and human rights first.
The UN Secretary General has often talked about South Africa as a key player in the arena of multilateralism.
We congratulate President Ramaphosa on his election. South Africa is playing a leading role in the work of the United Nations and in the support for multilateralism, notably by its presence on the Security Council, its active presence on the Security Council, and all of the support South Africa and the South African Defense Forces bring to UN peacekeeping, both in terms of material, in terms of men and women, and in terms of leadership.
As the issue of Palestinian and Sahrawi independence and the reform of the United Nations with a greater role for Africa become key international pillars of Ramaphosa's full term as president.
The history of the global economy informs us that no country can prosper at the expense of all others, and that no people can hope to live in comfort as well as in security for as long as millions of others languish in poverty. It is therefore essential that we take collective responsibility for the development of all nations and for the improvement of the lives of all people.
With a promise to this august assembly that this would be the generation that changes the world. The world, Mr. President, is waiting. Shervin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.